Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the 7 Minute Spotlight, where we take a look at ideas, stories, and concepts for inspiration and encouragement. My name is Steve Crawford. And we're here for another week with a story, an idea, and actually going to take a look at a movie and go back down memory lane a little bit. In 1974, one of the top movies was called The Sting. It was with Robert Redford, Paul Newman, and it was set in the 30s. And it was about a couple of guys that knew how to be grifters, whatever, but they were getting back at a mafia guy who had bumped off one of their friends. And it's a great story. It's one of my favorite movies. I really like how it's filmed. They did a good job of capturing what things would have been like in the 30s as far as costumes, the settings of the buildings and the streets and the activities going on. And but it also allows you to reminisce, and that was quite a big deal in 1974. The music from that movie was very popular, and that style of ragtime piano playing was prevalent pretty much everywhere. And there's just this nostalgia of the good old days. My dad and I were talking about it once, and keep in mind, my dad was born in 1916, and he told me about the good old days in the 30s that gloves only cost a dime. But in the 30s, he didn't have a dime to buy a pair of gloves. He said he went several winters, keeping his hands like this because he didn't have gloves for a dime. Keep in mind, my dad dropped out of high school when he was 14 years old, 1930, not because he was a bad student, not because he was dumb, not because he was rebellious or anything. He dropped out of school to go to work to help feed and take care of the family. He was the oldest boy, and that was just something you did back then. We've got a lot of reasons for dropping out of school today, but hopefully that's not one of them. And he said, I don't want to go back to the good old days. He said, gloves are $1 today. Keep in mind, it's 1974. Gloves are $1 today, and I have $1 for gloves. I don't want to go back to the good old days. And I think it's good that we reminisce, but how good were the good old days? Well, it seems to be that we remember what we choose to remember, and that might be okay. A friend of mine, David Rempels, in a conversation that I had with him years ago, is that the bad stuff just eventually fades to black. And I think that's true unless we choose to keep it alive. And so it's the perspective of what we're looking at. And I remember in 1974 specifically, my dad had to have his yard resodded, and some of the fellows at a trucking company that worked with us, not for us or anything like that, we were just in conjunction with each other. But a couple of young guys at that time, they were probably in their mid to late 20s, were laying sod for my dad and had commented that the Teamster contract was up to $6.39 per hour. And one of them commented, I can't believe I'm making that kind of money. Nobody is really worth $6.39 an hour. Well, today that's just totally absurd. But times do change, and we remember the good things, and that's probably okay, but we have to remember them within perspective. I think it's good to reminisce, but we don't want to live in the past. We want to remember the past, but we can live the future. Billy Joel had a song that came out in the 80s. It was called Keeping the Faith. And there's a line in that song that says, the good old days weren't always that good, and tomorrow's not as bad as it seemed. Merle Haggard, in one of his songs, said that everything changes except what we choose to recall. Life is always changing, but when we recall, I remember our wedding day real clearly. I remember the births of our sons real clearly. All those things stay clear in my mind of what was going on. The rest of it can be romanticizing, or it faded to black. Probably one of the best lines that you could capture in a movie, and you may not even realize it, is from the Back to the Future trilogy at the end of the third one. Marty and Jennifer are talking to Doc Brown, and what had been written up about them had faded away on the paper and newspapers, which we don't have an awful lot of today. And Doc Brown said, your future hasn't been written. You get to write it, so make it a good one. And so I think that's what we need to look at. We don't need to be afraid of tomorrow. We should take tomorrow's challenges. We need to do it with wisdom. We don't need to do it with fear. And also, we don't want to do it with foolishness. We don't need to take unnecessary risks. But if something seems a little bit risky, but it has opportunity, we're not going to know if we try. So the question for us today is, How good were the good old days? What are we remembering? What are we hanging on to? And what are we looking forward to? And I know, like in my case, I'm still operating our company and I'm enjoying it. I enjoy investing in the people that are working with us. But I know also that God has me on a mission to share truths, and just very simple truths, that we don't need to be afraid, that we can take care of one another, what we can have a sense of unity, not uniformity. We don't all need to be alike, but we can be unified in our approach to things, where we have a common good, a common goal, and of course, a common idea for everybody is, what does the future hold beyond this life? And that's where salvation enters in. And that's a whole topic that is awesome and it's great. And I don't think I can cover it in 7 minutes. But as we move forward, let's ask ourselves the question, God, what do you want me to focus on? What can I take from my past and deliver to the future so that I can be the best me that I can be? So we'd love to hear from you. If you have any comments or ideas, contact information is on the screen. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for participating in this. God bless you all and have a great day. Live your best day that you can today, and tomorrow will take care of itself. God bless. Have a good day.